Good afternoon. Hey, Sanat. Hey, Linda.
Hi, Professor. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Hi, Professor.
Hey, Professor. Good afternoon.
Hi there. Hey, Susanna. Good to see you guys.
Thank you. Good to see you too.
Professor, I want to thank you for your support and for your prayers. Thank you so much. I appreciate your help and your time while I was at hospital.
Of course.
I'm doing okay. But my mom, she's still in the hospital, but she's doing better than before.
Okay.
Thank God.
I was going to ask, well, I didn't want it only because you shared in the class, Linda, but I was, of course, been thinking about you, and I'm happy to hear. Well, I'm sorry your mom is still in the hospital, but I'm glad she's doing a little bit better.
Yes.
Good.
She's on oxygen still. I'm on oxygen too, but better than before.
Wow. Are you at oxygen at home?
Yes, I have oxygen cylinder at home.
Okay. Well, of course, well, of course, it touches my heart that you want to be here, but I'm going to tell you, right? Take care of yourself however you need to, okay?
Yes, of course. No, I'm glad to be here with you guys. I miss you guys. I miss your class.
Oh, thanks, Linda.
But I just want to give you big thankful, big great. I'm grateful because you are my teacher and you really have such a pure heart. I just thank you for that, Professor.
You too, Linda. You too. Believe me. I know, like I said, I think I told you, I forget if I told you in the text, Linda, but I don't know. The last 2 or 3 weeks, I think it's just been hard for everybody. I'm telling you, I think, I don't know what's going on in Sacramento, in California, in the world. I just feel like everyone is going through something the last couple of weeks. So, of course, you're all in my hearts and prayers. You are more important as a human being than as a student, but of course I want to help you with your goals, but yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate. I'm so grateful because you are my teacher and you're a friend of us, all of us.
You're the best.
Thank you.
You're the best. Sanat is saying nice things in the chat, just talking about Sanat is hoping you feel better and that everyone gets well.
Thank you so much, Sanat. Thank you. I appreciate.
Aki's coming in. Hey, Aki. Andre, hi.
Hi, Professor.
Hi there. How you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm pretty good today.
Good.
Yeah, I feel pretty good. We'll see how we are feeling about this book. One person posted in the discussion. So I thought, I think we need some more practice. We need to talk about the book a little bit more. Maybe it's that. I think I said this last week too, but with everything online, and again, I know Susanna took 325, so that's what I was going to say. Susanna knows the screens change how much attention we have. The screens change how much brain power we have. And I really do think that with everything on the screens, 16 weeks is too long. We don't have the attention span for 16 weeks. So maybe we just hit our low point, but we're in week 10. We can kind of finish strong. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. But it is good to see you guys. But I feel good. I feel good this week.
The book was sad though.
It is. I know we talked about this last week, but remember, it's like a big metaphor. So it's better if you think of the characters kind of like symbols for deeper meaning. But yes, the plot of the book is pretty heavy.
Yeah, definitely.
It is. I think you'll find in most literature classes, I don't know if this is true for all languages, but at least in US literature classes, there's not that it's like, what's great literature? It's usually not like happy romantic comedies, you know what I mean? It's like, it's about deep, real, sometimes, difficult.
Yes, we have it in our literature too, but I never like to read those. That's why.
Yeah, I know.
It's heavy. If something is heavy, it's just depressing me. I can't, because it's like during when, I have like really graphic, imagination.
I know.
So when I read something, it just like, I feel like I'm just like experiencing it. It just like, it bothers me. I can't.
I hope that when we can talk about the book, and especially the end of the book, that we can talk about it in a way that we can sort of my hope is, I hope that when we talk about it and what we think the deeper meaning of this book might be, then we can take away that deeper meaning instead of just like, oh my God, this was so painful, or this was so sad, right? Because I know what you're saying. It's a fine balance, Suzanne. I totally agree. You're not wrong. All right. Well, we'll wait maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, but this is our usual group. I guess Frank's not here, but we'll see if Frank comes in. Cool. Well, it is good to see you guys. We are here, like I said, week 10. 2.5 months, you guys. It's October 25th. It's a Monday of 2021, and we're here in week 10. Here's what we're doing. Oh, I've got this is my first draft. Today, I've got a really short announcement, and then I want to make sure that I leave time for if you have questions. And then I want to talk about character analysis. I think maybe we only have one person in the discussion because we need to talk about this more, practice a little bit, and look at how to do, a character analysis. So that's most of what I want to do, is to practice this skill. Yeah. So first, my announcement, you probably saw that today I published, right? That just means I finished all the grading and I opened the grades for everyone to see. So everyone should now be able to see their scores for the poetry project in Canvas. When you look at view comments, or when you look at sort of the green box, the red box, and comments and notes that I type into your document. So here's how I tried to give feedback. Red box means errors, problems, mistakes, things to fix. So if you put, line 6 has 9 syllables and there's a red box, that means it's not 9 syllables. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less, right? Or if I put a red box about something in your analysis section, for example, it just means I think that you made a mistake in your analysis. A green box means well done. Yes, good point. Your analysis is correct. You expressed this idea really nicely. Your discussion of the metaphor was absolutely correct. So red box means some problems, errors, things to fix. Green box means yes, excellent. I love it. Great. And if you have any questions about my comments or notes, or it's not clear what you did well and what you didn't do well, or if you want to revise for a higher score, come to office hours or schedule an appointment with me. Send me an email right now. Text me. If you're watching the recording, text me right now too. We'll find a time to talk, and we can just talk one-on-one, and I can say, okay, rewrite this paragraph, fix this analysis, resubmit, and you can definitely increase your score. So yeah, if you want a higher score, text me or email me and let's talk about it. Okay. Any questions about this announcement and about this stuff?
Just Professor, with the how many days you need, if we want a higher degree?
I'm not that worried. I know in the syllabus it says 1 week, but I'm tired, you're tired. So if it takes more than a week, Linda, that's fine. Just I'll make an announcement as we get closer, but we're in week 10. So hopefully before week 14 or 15, that last week can be kind of stressful, but I don't want you to feel like you have to do it right away. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will email you or text you to see how we can communicate to fix it.
Perfect. And perfect. I was even thinking for Linda, I know Linda was, like she was saying, Linda was feeling sick and there was a lot going on. If you send me a text or an email, for example, I could even just make a short video. I could record myself talking about the document if it's hard for people to meet. So just send me a text or an email if you guys, yeah, want to talk about your grades.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, so good question from Linda. The sooner the better for both of us, but if you need some more time, I'm not going to stress you. I know what's going on in the world right now. Any other questions or ideas? Cool. Oh, Frank had an idea. Aki gave a thumbs up. Frank is not here, but Frank had an idea. And we've got a few people who wrote their own poems here, Andre and Aki. Andre, Aki, Susanna, Frank, would you guys, Frank said, I want to see my other classmates' poems. Like, could you guys be interested, or would you be interested in reading your poems, or I could read them to the class? Like, I'm just curious. Aki, Andre, Susanna says thumbs up. Susanna, would you want to read your own? Okay, me. Aki, would you be okay if like next week I can read yours or you can read your poem? Aki says thumbs up. Andre, how about you? Andre might be setting up the computer. Aki wrote her own poems. Andre wrote his own poems. Susanna wrote her own poems.
I don't care. Like, I don't have a problem.
I said, Frank wrote his own poem, and Frank was so excited, you guys. He was like, I want to read the other students' poems. And I said, I love that idea, but I want to make sure that we ask people's feelings about this. So,
Professor,
please, Aki.
so two of them, so both of them.
If you want, or if you only want one, or if you only want to share one, Aki, that's fine. You could tell me too.
Okay, I don't know. I'm not sure.
That's okay. Think about it. Just think about it.
Okay.
Aki. Think about
Okay.
it. Okay, cool. Well, we'll see.
To read it today or next class, whenever.
I was thinking, well, maybe I was thinking, I want to wait for sure until, let's see if Frank comes today. Maybe we could do it at the end of class, Susanna.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't want to do it without Frank since it was his idea, Okay, cool. So here's my question. I've got a lesson. I know exactly what we're going to do. We're going to practice character analysis here, but I want to show you how to do it. I have a feeling people might be thinking, okay, we talked about it. I know we practiced it. If you were here or you watched the recording, we practiced it a little bit at the end of class. But how are we feeling about the book in general, or questions about last week? I know I introduced literary analysis a little bit. So again, just for review, today we're just doing character analysis. But remember last week's class, I'm going to open the PowerPoint again. Sanad was asking about, is the poem in our assignment? Sanad, some students wrote, remember, you could analyze a poem from the document, or you could write your own poem. So what I was asking, Sanad, is for students like Susanna and Aki and Frank and Andre who wrote your own poem, could you share, or do you want to share? That's what I was talking about, Sanad. Perfect. So remember last week, and I saw that she said, okay. So remember last week, I was talking about these things like setting, plot, character analysis, and themes. Now again, good, Sanad says she's got it. Thank you, Sanad. So today we're really going to focus on character analysis. But before we do this, do we have any questions? Do we want to talk about anything from setting, plot, and themes, which we introduced a little bit last week? Any questions about stuff from last week before we go into character analysis? Cool. I guess then the only thing I'd say before we look at Juana here, and we're going to look at an early chapter, Susanna, so it's not any of the super sad chapters yet, is we talked last week about themes, right? We introduced this, and this was sort of again, we've got good practice for this when we are spending so much time with poetry, right? Looking for central metaphors, looking for words and images that keep coming back. I think a lot of you all did that really nicely and did that really well. I guess one thing that I did want to say is, if you're thinking about themes and how to identify themes, one of the most basic way to do this is just like we have here with rich versus poor, is to think about something, and I'll put this word in the slide here. Now, this can make things seem, excuse me, this can make things feel almost a little bit too simple sometimes, but it is still, I need to delete this, excuse me, hold on one second, you guys, there we go. Sometimes when we look for binaries, as I say here, and again, binaries just means like two polar opposites, this can make things seem a little bit too simplistic, but for us, 350 level, it's still a really good place to start if we're thinking about themes. So we can say, okay, well, one way that the author is exploring a specific theme is by looking at opposites, right? The type of opposites that get set up in this book. Rich and poor is a great example, right? So we have rich characters in the book like the doctor and the priest, and then we have poor characters like Kino and Juana, right? And basically all of the people who are fishing for their life, right? So I wanted to just do this a little bit of practice. So if we think about, it says that stucco and stone, right? The rich people live in the city or the town of stucco and stone. Does anyone remember, or can you think from the top of your head, what's the binary? What's the opposite? Like, where do Kino and his family live?
Kino and they were living in the, my God, I forgot, it's front of the water with those.
Do you remember? Does anyone remember? So
I forgot the name.
yeah, it's all good.
Brush?
Good. Oh, what is it, Aki?
Brush?
Brush. Yeah,
Yeah.
brush. We could say brush, straw,
Oh, yeah.
palm. I mean, they use a lot of different words here. We also even they talk about the dirt floors, but exactly right. Aki and Susanna, you're on it, right? So even if we think about this, it's a pretty simple binary, but it does give us this opposite, right? It's kind of like Kino is in the brush house, the doctor is in the stone house, the stucco house, right? And there's all these kinds of binaries. Very, very famous and obvious way to think about binaries, of course, is when we look at this book, we see a big difference between men and women, right? This theme of men and women comes up in the story a lot, right? Can anybody think, again, even if we look at, I've got the PDF for us here, and even when we talked about how this is a parable, right? Like if this story is a parable, I'm here at the very beginning on page 1. So I'll put it on the screen, but if you have your book, these are the pages we're looking at too. So even at the beginning, you notice he gives us some of these opposites, these binaries, right? When he says there are only good and bad, right? And black and white, and good and evil. And in fact, so we could do black versus white. And usually black and white also means darkness in the story, darkness versus what?
Brightness.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Bright or light, absolutely. Good versus evil, we definitely hear this as a way to start thinking about themes a lot, right? Now, now it's not always this easy. Can anyone think of any other binaries just off the top of their head? I'm curious.
I thought Kino versus Juana.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kino
versus.
Kino versus Juana.
Yeah.
I agree. And now we could say, in this case, Aki, Kino versus Juana gives us man versus woman.
Okay. Okay.
And though
thinking it just goes under the second one, like the stack of stone versus fresh straw, you know, the palm dirt, because I was thinking like where Kino was sleeping and where the doctor was sleeping, what the Kino was eating and what the doctor was eating, because it, you know, it explained details in the book.
It does. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the descriptions in the book, and especially in this book, because it is pretty, I'm not saying it's easy, you guys, but again, like, I think the symbols are pretty clear, hopefully, right? I mean, like, he's not trying to make it super complex, even if the story has, you know, like we said, it's only a few characters. But I love that Aki was saying, okay, when we think about opposites, and then she was talking about characters. Now I'm going to make a connection here. So we also have, I was not necessarily going to talk about this, but I think it's worth talking about since, excuse me, since Aki brought it up. So I'm going to mention something. Sometimes a book will have characters that are closely related. Maybe they are very similar. Other times, there will be characters who are like mirrors or opposites of each other. This is called this is just a kind of vocabulary word here for you guys. And
Hi,
again,
Professor.
hi there. Oscar, who did I hear? Yes, Oscar voice. Hey, Oscar.
Sorry, I'm 15 minutes late.
Oh, no problem. We're just continuing on with character analysis. So you could say something like in the Pearl, Juana is a foil for Kino. And this means they each represent two different things, right? Now, like Aki, like I was sort of saying, Aki, we could say, okay, well, Juana represents woman, femininity, the female side, and Kino represents male and the man side, right? We could talk about that. But I mean, we could also talk about the different parts and the different other parts of the binary in the theme. Let me go back to our better slide here. We could talk about these binaries, and maybe we could say at different times, Juana is good and Kino is evil. I mean, you know what I mean? This stuff changes at different times, even in the story. So I love when Aki was talking about, I want to put these slides closer together. Excuse me while I'm jumping around here. Yes, I'm going to move this slide here so that it's more clear. So when Aki's saying, well, Juana and Kino are opposite characters, that's a great example. I think you're absolutely correct, Aki. And I think just a little literary vocab here for you. You could say that they are foils to each other, right? They think different things, they act in different ways, and that shows us something about those deeper themes that we talked about in this story, right? And again, it's not always that simple, because in rich versus poor, well, obviously, they're both poor, right? Both Juana and Kino are on the poor side, and they both live in the brush and the palm dirt. But when we think about what we have expectations, or what in this culture, this time, men and women are like, very different, right? And at different times in the story, they do want different things, right? And in fact, we're going to see some examples of this when we do our character analysis of chapter 2 here, right? Great example, Aki. And I mean, yeah, great example, Aki. That's all I want to say for now. That's all I want to say for now. Any other ideas about themes? Because I did want to jump, into the character analysis, but I said this last week, but I wanted to give us a slide for it. So if as we keep thinking about literary analysis, and I say, okay, what themes do you see in this section or in this chapter? If you're not sure, right, if you're like, oh, I don't know, a good place to start is, where are these opposites, right? Where are these binaries? And we'll see an example of that even at the beginning of chapter 2. But does this make sense, or any questions here?
I do have a question, but I think it's like from last video I've seen, you were like explaining about the plot and the theme and the character, I think, analysis. But I have confusion about the plot and the theme. I think the theme is like a overcover the story, right? Let's say death or love or courage or whatever they have,
Yep.
it has. And a plot, I think it's a kind of event, right, Professor? Like a
You said
why
it,
he does this,
You
why
said-
he did this.
and I would even say, forget it. When you say why he did this, I think why is even the theme. Plot is just what, right? Plot is she
What?
did this,
Yeah.
he did this, they did that, then this happened. Like, we're going to look at chapter 2. Kino wakes up, Kino gets in the canoe, Kino goes under the water, Kino finds the pearl. I mean, this is just what happens, right? That's the plot. And then the deeper meaning, like I love that you said, Linda, love and courage, those kind of abstract nouns, right? Those deeper feelings, those will be the theme, right? And again, if you took my 325, this will sound familiar, right? Because the theme is, what's the deeper meaning, right? Who and I'm saying this to sort of say, who cares, right? What does this story mean? And the theme is the reason we care about the story. We understand it has some deeper meaning for us. So yeah.
So this like a two, I mean, the plot and the theme, it's kind of correlated to each other, or just like a separated, but each one has different meaning.
I think they should. I think they are connected, but in a good book, they do have the same meaning. It's clear how they go together, right? But again, when we talk about literary analysis, or if you're asked to summarize the plot, for example, in another class, if you ask to summarize the plot, well, that would just be, like I said, he woke up, he got in the canoe, he jumped in the water, he found the pearl. Plot, 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 plot. But for a literary analysis type paper, which we'll get to practice, at the end of the semester, you usually want to connect plot and theme together, right? And for my 325 folks, I think maybe only Susanna today, but your narrative and the theme, right? Like whatever you choose to share about your own experience, that's important. You have to make that choice. And then the reader needs to understand why that matters, or what it means, or what you learned, or all that stuff. So
they are related to each other.
Definitely.
Like in somehow,
They
in
should,
some cases.
They should be. And well, I guess when you're reading, think about it this way. When you're reading this book, I hope you start to think, okay, when I read that this happens in the plot, what does that mean for the deeper theme? What does that mean for the deeper story? That's your job when you're reading. When you're writing, and what we're kind of practicing today, and like I said, your final paper for this class will be, is your job when you're writing is to prove that, right? When this happens in the plot, it shows that the deeper theme is courage or love or whatever, right? So that's how they come together in both reading and in writing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Hey, Frank.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Frank, I think we are going to have a little poetry reading at the end, so I'm glad you're here. We have some people were interested in sharing their poems after I asked them.
Oh, that's great. All right.
I told you we should wait for Frank, you guys. So maybe that'll be at the end of class today. Perfect. Great question from Linda about connecting theme and plot. Even though I know we talk about this at 315, 325, it's always good to practice this and how these things connect together, right? Very important. Any other questions about theme before we start to practice character analysis? Because, right, character analysis is everything that I just said about the plot, but instead of looking about the actions in the plot, we focus on one specific character, right? And what they do in the plot and how that character connects to some of these deeper themes, right? So you could even, for example, in a literature class, you might have a teacher say, okay, for this short paper, I want you to do a literary analysis. And that might mean the whole book, all the themes, all the plot, all of it. Or you could even just have an essay that's one character analysis, right? You're only looking at one character for the entire book, what they do and how that connects to the plot. So there's all these different approaches or ways to start, especially when it comes to writing, college level writing. writing about literature. So that's why you're going to get a little practice doing everything in this class, right? That's my goal, is to give you a little bit of exposure to all of this stuff. Okay, in that case, then let's practice, unless there are any other questions. So maybe we can think, I'm going to keep thinking about this one, Aki, but we can come back to it after we look at Juana. So we're going to look at Juana. And like I say, remember, character analysis, to do this, right? How would we do this? We just look at what the character does in the plot. We look very specifically at the character. And then we look at how that character and their actions, remember, we've got to be very clear here, are connected to the deeper theme of the book. So I love that the example Linda used earlier was courage. I love that. So let's say we want to think about courage. Okay, then we can read a chapter or read the whole book and think, well, what does this character show us about courage, right? Or what does this character show us about women or men and women in this society, right? That's kind of the framework that we can use to do this kind of character analysis, right? That's kind of what we're doing. And in fact, if I go into Canvas, again, I know most people haven't done it yet, but if you go into the discussion, this is exactly what I'm asking you to practice doing here for Juana. And like I said, Tahmina, I think we've got some good, oh, we have more? It's more than just one person. I'm tripping, you guys. I was looking at the wrong thing. But some of you have started to do this, which is fantastic. That'll make us even more ready for this. But this is exactly what I'm asking you to do for this discussion activity, is to practice looking at Juana. And actually, let me look at this real quick. So Tahmina is saying traditional, loving, obedient, forgiving wife, loyal, submissive, good and kind. Yeah. Obeying her husband as her culture dictates. Yeah, there's a lot of this is correct. Yeah. For me, the easiest way is Juana, as it wasn't Juana is an ordinary Mexican woman. Ooh, see, now I like. See, okay, good. Great strength and influence. Oh, good. What was I looking at, you guys? Good. So I want to say one thing, and maybe we can do this together for Kino instead of Juana, if some of you have already done this. Okay, so, Tahmina, just looking at Tahmina's post here. Like Susanna says, I agree. I agree with traditional, obedient, forgiving. Now, Tahmina, as we keep practicing this, just remember what you need to do next, right, is start to say, for example, when Juana does this, right, when she says this on page whatever, right, we're going to look at, I've got the PDF right here. I'm going to go to chapter 2, right, on page 17, on page 20, when she does this thing, we need to make sure, well, you guys need to make sure that you are starting to make those explicit connections, right? So I agree with you. Juana is loving and obedient, but for a real character analysis, you've got to give a specific example, like I say on the slide here, right, for today. How their actions are connected, right? How are their actions? Actions in the plot, right? Let's look at Andres, for example. So Juana was the continue of Kino. She was only his other shadow side. This is this idea of the foil, right? Like Aki was saying. Andres getting at this idea. They are two opposites. They represent two different things, right? And I love, again, we're coming after poetry. I love that Andre says the shadow side. Yeah. Juana was the balance. So we have, quote, Juana was making the magic praying. So Kino was working, seeking pearls. When Kino held the pearl, she held Coyotito. I love this example, right? So let's look at page 20. So Andre is saying, when Kino held the pearl, she held Coyotito. Amazing example of specific contrast here. So if we look at page 20, we've got this. I'll even start a little bit earlier here. So starting on page 19, to just go along with this character analysis, Juana caught her breath and moaned a little. And to Kino, the secret melody of the maybe pearl broke clear and beautiful, rich and warm and lovely, glowing and gloating and triumphant. In the surface of the great pearl, he could see his dream forms. He picked the pearl from the dying flesh and held it in his palm, and he turned it over and saw that its curve was perfect. Now we get Juana, right? Juana came near to stare at it in his hand. And it was the hand he had smashed against the doctor's gate. And the torn flesh of his knuckles was turned grayish white by the seawater. Instinctively, Juana went to Coyotito, where he lay on his father's blanket. She lifted the poultice of seaweed, and he looked at the shoulder. Kino, she cried shrilly. He looked past his pearl, and he saw that the swelling was going out of the baby's shoulder. The poison was receding from its body. Then Kino's fist closed over the pearl, and his emotion broke over him. He put back his head and howled. His eyes rolled up, and he screamed, and his body was rigid. The men in the other canoes looked up, startled, and then they dug their paddles into the sea and raced toward Kino's canoe. So I love that Andre gave us this example. In this moment in the plot, two characters, Kino and Juana. Kino is holding the pearl, and Juana goes to hold the baby, right? Now, I love this, Andre, if you want to, but maybe let's just even talk about that as an example, and we're just practicing connecting to these deeper themes. What do we think this is saying? What does this give us the feeling? What does this show us? What does this tell us? Let's just talk about it for a minute. Andre, if you want to, since it's your idea, or anybody, what does this great moment of character analysis show us? Kino holds the pearl, Juana goes to hold the baby. Why? What does that mean?
Kino was excited that he got the pearl, so he forgot, like, not forgot though, it's just like priority was the pearl for him at that
I
moment.
love it. I love it. Good. And what do we think? And we can go even deeper here, right, Susanna? So the pearl is a pearl. In the story, it's just a pearl. But what else? Again, we've spent so much time talking about poetry as a symbol, as an image. What do we think? What for you, what does the pearl represent?
The power.
I think okay, go ahead.
Please, I heard Susanna say power, which I love. And then Frank, please continue. Susanna said the power of, and then go ahead, Frank.
I think for the Kino is most important this moment, the pearl.
Yes.
But for the Juana is most important is her baby. So it's completely different. They are thinking about what is most important. Each of them is different.
I love it. I completely agree. And then Andre says, Andre is going even more poetic and even more literary. In the chat, Andre says, Kino is rich with the pearl. Kino feels rich from the pearl, and Juana feels rich from the baby, right? From the family, right? I love where now we're connecting multiple themes, and I see your hand. I love that we see rich. Now we're thinking man and woman, mother, father, rich and rich versus poor, but also kind of like, well, what does rich even mean, right? And I love that Andre is saying in this image, in this moment in the plot, we can say, okay, well, Kino's richness comes from the pearl, Juana's richness comes from holding Coyotito. I love it. Yes, Susanna, please.
I want to just add the opportunity, because when he got the pearl, he was already thinking about the opportunities, what he's going to do with it once he sells the pearl. And the first thing that he was thinking, like the good education for his son. So the son, it's like he wants to sell it for his son,
Yes,
to get better. So I cannot say like he does not care about the son.
well, see, now we're getting to something, right? And we're going to look at this especially next week and the week after, but now you're sort of, Susanna is going to, let me make a slide for this, because what Susanna is talking about is really important here, right? I'm going to make a duplicate. Actually, I'm just going to do this. So let's say, this is where, like, of course, like, hold on, let me do one thing at a time. Excuse me. I'm terrible at multitasking. Okay, so Now, I want to say something like Linda was saying, okay, so theme and plot, and, of course, we separate them in college because it's useful to think about them in different ways and sort of imagine new creative ways to think about what we read. But of course, like, again, this was Linda's question earlier, they're all connected, right? They all run together. So at the beginning, right, we can start to explore all of these potential big ideas: darkness and light, good and evil, men and women, rich and poor. All of those are essential and important ways to think about the book, because a good book will have, hopefully, more than just one idea in it. But once you decide that you might want to focus on a specific theme, right, then we can sort of make more interesting connections. So for example, we could say one theme is richness. I'm using Andre's word here, right? And actually, I'm going to insert one more column. And let's call this the plot. And I'll call this, just like images, let's say that themes are all connected to images and symbols. Obviously, the name of this book is The Pearl, but I do think that the pearl symbolizes a lot of different things. And in the plot, excuse me. So if we're talking about the pearl symbolizes richness, right? Sorry, you guys, I want to make sure that this looks right. There we go. Then we can sort of look at this same moment in the plot and this story and see how it can mean different things to different people, because Susanna's bringing in that ambiguity word from poetry, right? So if we say the pearl represents richness and the pearl represents wealth, but for Kino, and for Coyotito, let me say this. I'm going to get rid of this column. I just want to, I'm trying to make, I want to show you guys, like, try and make it clear what Suzanne is getting at, because this ambiguity idea is tricky and important to understand, right? Plot, we could say plot plus character together here, because even within the same theme, maybe for different characters, that those themes are represented in different ways. So for example, in Andre's comment in the chat, okay, if we think about richness, wealth, success, what represents that big theme? Well, for sure, in this story, the pearl represents a lot of different things for different people. But for Kino, it definitely represents, richness, wealth, money. But then, and so we see this moment in the plot. Kino finds the pearl and holds it. But he imagines a future for his family and Coyotito. We could also say, though, for Juana, she also is connected to this idea of wealth and success and richness, but the image for her of wealth and success is Coyotito, is the baby. She's holding the baby. So Juana, and when we think about the plot and what happens, Juana watches Kino find the pearl, but all she cares about is the baby. Now, this is sort of exactly as Andre described it, right? And he is exactly correct. But of course, this gets more complicated because later in the story, like Susanna was saying, in chapter 3, when Kino looks into the pearl in chapter 3, he sees some things for himself and Juana, getting married in the church and all that stuff. But then he also sees a school for Coyotito. Coyotito will learn how to read and Coyotito will learn how to write. So again, it's interesting how, like you guys were saying, mirror images, opposites for characters. We could even say that they both agree about the theme, right? They both have this feeling of, wow, my family is very important, but the difference is sort of how and what, you know what I mean? And how and what the pearl represents. Because if you look about it in this way, Kino sees the pearl as something that will help his family, right? But by the end of the story, what do you think for Juana? Does she feel like the pearl will help or harm the family? Yes, Susanna, please.
Well, the interesting part over there that in the beginning, Juana should also agree with whatever, like with the Kino's idea, because she was also, drawn with the pearl, like she was also imagining. But the difference is that she sensed the danger and she stopped. But Takino, he just wanted to go after it,
Yes.
he wanted to have that success. But that's the difference. I would not say Juana was more paying like more drawn with the kid. It's like I don't think so. I think like both of them were on the same page.
Yeah, it's tricky. And we could also talk about something like, we could add a word here. And again, now we're getting right into it, which is excellent. That's what we should be doing. But if we also think about ambiguity, like we talked about poetry, like things can be unclear or have more than one meaning, right? For example, for some, the pearl is a gift. For some, the pearl is a curse, right? By the end of the story, we have all these different ideas. So ambiguity, still same thing from poetry, right? It means, well, this could have a lot of different meanings, and it's what makes, I think, literature exciting and interesting. Sometimes confusing, but it's what makes it interesting. It's what makes it interesting. But then we also can think about characters' intentions. Because that's what I'm thinking about listening to Frank and listening to Susanna here, right? Is, well, so characters can want the same thing or have the same goal, but they want to achieve that goal in a very different way. So we could have same intent, different actions. So what I'm curious, especially Aki, some of you guys who have started the book or maybe read the whole book, I think I mostly agree with Susanna. Juana and Kino have the same intention. Do you guys agree, disagree? Andre, you can put it in the chat if you want. What do you think about this? Do they both want the same thing? Do they both have a good intention for their family and their son? What do you think? Maybe let's even say in chapter 2. Even how about in this part I just read? In the surface of the giant here, in this, I'm right here, in the surface of the giant, of the great pearl, he could see his dreams form. He picked the pearl from the dying flesh and held it in his palm, and he turned it over and saw that its curve was perfect. Juana came near to stare at it in his hand, and it was the hand he had smashed against the doctor's gate, and the torn flesh of the knuckles was turned grayish white by the seawater. So we get lots of images in here already. But notice one thing. When it says, in the surface of the dream, he could see, what could he see? Yes, his dreams form. They needed to pay the doctor only. Andre's talking about the different moment in the plot. Yes, he could see his dreams form. Now, we can't say too much from just one sentence, you guys, but notice whose dreams? I mean, he sees his own dreams. Now, you're right, Susanna. Later, we understand. He says, I want to get married in the church, and he has dreams that include the whole family. But it is interesting, right away it says he could see his own dreams. He could see his own dreams. And this is also where we start to talk about image, even within a specific paragraph. So I'd love to get your guys' feeling. What's going on with this when it says, Juana came near to stare at it in his hand? It was the hand that he had smashed against the doctor's gate. The torn flesh of the knuckles was turned grayish white by the seawater. here we get a strong image, right? Again, thinking about images from our poems, what kind of feeling does this image give us in this paragraph? No wrong answer.
I think it represents like one of the things, like you put it there, you know, it had no power.
Okay.
You know, it was like as they were poor. Now it has something valuable in it, and
Ooh, I like that.
the
I like that. I like that. So interesting. I love that. So Susanna's saying, well, before it was empty, it was broken, it was bloody, but now, so that was kind of weak power. But now in that hand is this symbol, is this image of the power. I like that. Okay, good. When you think about smashed, it says smashed against, smashed and torn flesh. What does this give us a feeling of? If we think about binaries, right? If we think about opposites, is this give us a peaceful feeling or an angry feeling?
anger and
Yes. And if we think about, and same thing, if I said peace or violence, what do these images give us?
the smashing one,
Yeah.
violence.
Right, exactly. So again, I think this is, again, like I was saying last week, I like to teach this book for a literary analysis because it's not subtle, right? Like the images, the deeper connections, because when it says it's a parable, right? Like you have this image of the beautiful pearl. So I love, and then this broken, bloody hand. So I love that for Susanna, you could say that's like power, that's like weakness versus power. Love it. I think I could also add something like beauty and violence, or something, right? Or we could say his hand is bloody and violent, and all of a sudden that violence is, you know, he's grabbing the pearl with this violence. And maybe there's a different way to grab, you know, just as we start to continue, as we continue through the book, I hope that you start to notice, because it's so short, John Steinbeck is using these kinds of images and symbols over and over again. And like I said, they're not subtle, right? It's it's strong language. He has his hand that he smashed against the gate. We have torn flesh and grayish white skin. Now I know that's from the seawater, but these are, you know, intense, kind of almost ugly, I want to say, images, right? And he's giving us those images and connecting them to the first time that we see the pearl, right? So again, I know I'm kind of moving around in a bunch of different places, but you see, when you start to really do character analysis and start to look for themes in the story, that is, you know, this is kind of how we read the first time. We're looking for themes, we're looking for images, we're looking for these things. So if I want to say, let's look at the next even short paragraph. And we're looking at Juana here. Remember, in these paragraphs, let's do the same thing we just did for Kino. So instinctively, Juana went to Coyotito where he lay on his father's blanket. She lifted the poultice of seaweed and looked at the shoulder. Kino, she said shrilly. He looked past his pearl and he saw that the swelling was going out of the baby's shoulder. The poison was receding from its body. Then Kino's fist closed over the pearl and his emotion broke over him. Actually, this is almost all Kino's paragraph, huh?
Mm-hmm.
What else? I think then maybe that's what I wanted to say about Juana in this paragraph. Yeah, again, I know I'm kind of jumping around here, but any other ideas about these paragraphs here and the connection, like Aki and Andre were saying about these opposite characters, the connection between Kino and Juana and how they represent different things in these few paragraphs here, right? Cool. Let's look at some more. So again, that started with Andre's example here. So Andre's talking about Juana was the continue of Kino. Yes, the foil. She was his shadow side. Juana is the balance of Kino. So Kino was working, seeking pearls. When Kino held the pearl, she held Coyotito. Juana was wiser than Kino because Kino could not overtake his emotion but Juana did. Okay, maybe you agree or disagree, but in this, on page 20, where do we see Kino not containing his emotion? I agree, Andre. Now remember, this is only in this paragraph, so maybe things change later in the story. But Andre, if you're there, can you type, or can anyone help Andre? Where do we see an example of Kino losing his emotion? He cannot control his emotion.
At the last paragraph, you just highlighted.
Yeah, give me one or two sentences, Susanna.
Ah, okay, let me see.
Let me zoom in.
Yeah. It says, then Kino's face closed over the pearl and his emotion broke over him. He put back his head and hold.
Yes. And even the next slide too, his eyes rolled up and he screamed and his body weight was rigid. So again, I just wanted to, I'm glad to see some of these examples here, because right, when I say character analysis means connecting plot and character actions with deeper themes, I think Andre's done a good job here, right? Juana was wiser because Kino could not overtake his emotions, but Juana did. And then let's see, for what did she take Coyotito with her into the canoe? Maybe it was better to leave him home because he was ill and there was a lot of sun outside. Interesting. Juana and the doctor are like we are today. She used an effective treatment to cure the wound of Coyotito. Oh, so good, Andre. This is excellent. She used an effective treatment to cure the wound of Coyotito. Then we get the quote, she gathered some brown seaweed and made a flat, damp poultice of it, and she applied it to the baby's swollen shoulder, which was as good a remedy as any and probably better than the doctor could have done. Great job. Good. I love it. And then Andres, Andres asking questions about how they change in the book. Yeah. Then Andres says, I could not understand in this chapter 2, Juana and Kino are like children. At the same time, in chapter 4, they are easily killing people. I'm not understood that chapter 1 and 2 take place the same morning, not because of, yeah. Well, let's say this right away. We do see a big change in this story, right? And here's the big, in all the different characters, in Juana and in Kino, in the whole town, in fact. What causes that change? I mean, this is an easy answer, but what causes that change? Anybody?
I don't get why Kino and Juana, why Andre mentioned Juana as well, because Juana was just like following the husband.
Well, and what is the thing, right, in the plot? What is the thing that creates all that change? What's the name of the book, you know?
Pearl.
Right. The pearl is, right, because the pearl arrives, it changes everything, right? We get that very clearly in the book. So I love that Andre is saying, well, I don't really understand. How could they do this? What could that change be? I think you're right, Andre. This is the whole point of the book, right? Like and when we talk about an analysis, and I see you, we can keep going, but when we talk about an analysis of this book, it's kind of your job in a literature class, right, to answer that question. Like, wait a minute, why would the author do this? Like, I understand the plot, I understand the characters, but what's going on? And what does it mean? And then I'm ready for you, Susanna. What does it mean that all it takes is this pearl, right? The pearl arrives, and then all of a sudden, boom, everything changes. What is he saying? I mean, there's a lot of different ways we could talk about that, but he's definitely trying to say something, right? Susanna, please go ahead.
Well, Kino wasn't there necessarily to kill people. He was protecting himself and his family. So he was defending. So people coming after him to killing himself. So he was protecting him and his family. That is why it turned out to, them change in the characters changing in the end.
Good. Did you?
With the in my understanding, it started with like these people, the innocent who like just living their lives, and then it just gradually developed into the people who was protecting their family and themselves.
Okay, I love it. So Susanna's interested in identifying this theme of protecting and protection. I can dig it. Frank, or did I hear other people have any ideas about? We have lots of time to talk about Andre's question, right? because again, today I want to mostly look at chapter 2 and 3. Because chapter 3, chapter 2, we started here. We talked about chapter 1 a little bit last week. Chapter 2 is where they find the pearl, right? And of course, after this moment that we're looking at in the story, lots of things happen, right? Things can never be the same again. So why they happen, what it means when they happen, we get to talk about. But does anyone else have an idea, like Andre's question and what Susanna was talking about there too? Like, what's going on? Why do they change? What's happening? That's okay. I don't even know if people are done. I didn't assign the whole book for you guys yet. We'll talk about that at the end of class today. But Susanna, did you finish the book?
Yes.
Yeah. Frank, did you finish the book?
Yes, I read once.
Aki, did you finish the book? Yellow thumbs up if you want, or thumbs down, either one.
No, not yet.
Okay. And can you, hey, how about give me thumbs up, yellow, human hand or yellow hand. Did you finish the book? Who finished the book? Susanna did and Frank did. Andre, you did, right? I'm guessing from your post. Andre finished. Okay, good. So I'm going to wait, Susanna and Frank and Andre, I'm going to keep talking about the big changes, especially next week and the week after, because we do need to make sense of this, right? But before we go really deep in it, I think it's good to get some idea of the characters and what they're like. Okay, so Susanna says, chapter 2, Juana's character is represented with strength and influence. She is more practical than her husband. For instance, when the scorpion stings their son, Juana uses her instinct and knowledge to take that's true. So we get that moment where Juana knows what to do, right? She takes the baby, she sucks the poison out of Coyotito's shoulder. Then, like Andre wrote about, and Susanna has here too, the damp poultice, she kind of has her own knowledge of this medicine or a way to help the baby, and she uses that right away. So as we can see, Juana's strength comes from the love that she has for her family. She looks after her husband, and every decision she makes is in the best interest of her husband and Coyotito. When Kino was desperately looking for oysters, Juana was praying silently. Excellent, right? I want to go to that part in chapter 2, since that's what we were looking at as well. Great job here, Susanna and Andre. You guys, great analysis here. It was right here. Where's Juana singing to Coyotito? There it is. Yeah. So this is on page 17. I think Andre talked about this too, and this was what Susanna was writing about as well. So again, if you're thinking about character analysis, right? One thing that Susanna did really well here, that Andre did really well here, and as good examples is, if you say she's very practical, right? Then we go to the plot, right? Let's say if we're thinking about Linda's question about theme and where do they overlap in plot, well, she's very practical. This is like thematic. This is character analysis. This is deeper meaning, right? And we can say she's more practical because then we get specific examples from the text. That's when we go back to the plot and the actions. So again, so far so good, right? When you're talking about the character's actions in the plot and connecting them to deeper themes and meanings, you are doing character analysis, which is essential for this type of writing. So again, Andre and Susanna wrote about this. So now I'm on page 17. Now, Kino's people had sung of everything that happened or existed. They'd made songs to the fishes, to the sea in anger, and to the sea in calm, to the light and the dark and the sun and the moon. Notice again right here, you guys, these binaries, right? Songs to the sea in anger, songs to the sea in calm, anger and calm. Right? Songs to the light and the dark, the light and the dark. Songs to the sun and the moon. Binaries, opposites, right? Whenever an author is doing this for you, he's saying like, here's a theme, here's some theme stuff, right? Here's some deeper meaning. And the songs were all in Kino and in his people, every song that had ever been made, even the ones forgotten. And as he filled his basket, the song was in Kino, and the beat of the song was in his pounding heart as it ate the oxygen from his held breath. And the melody of the song was the gray-green water and the little scuttling animals and the clouds of fish that flitted by and were gone. But in the song, there was a secret little inner song, hardly perceptible, but always there, sweet and secret and clinging, almost hiding in the counter melody. And this was the song of the pearl that might be. For every shell thrown in the basket might contain a pearl. Chance was against it, but luck and the gods might be for it. And in the canoe above him, Kino knew that Juana was making the magic of prayer, her face set rigid and her muscles hard to force the luck, to tear the luck out of the god's hands. For she needed the luck for the swollen shoulder of Coyotito. And because the need was great and the desire was great, the little secret melody of the pearl that might be was stronger this morning. Whole phrases of it came early and softly in the song of the undersea. Now, let's look at this example. We've got a little bit of Kino and Juan and Coyotito here, right? But I wanted to look at this paragraph because we haven't talked too much yet about this idea of the song. This idea of the song, even if you've only read the first 1 or 2 or 3 chapters, you know that this is a big symbol in the story, right? So let's talk a little bit about the song, because if there's a central metaphor, like we talked about in our poetry, we could say that either the central metaphor is the pearl itself, the name of the book, but now I'm back here on page 1. We did this a little bit last week, you guys. But remember, right from the very beginning on page 1 and 2, he's listening to the ocean, he's listening to the beach, and we get this idea of music right away. And I wanted to talk about this because as we start to analyze the end of the story, like Andre was saying, how could this happen? Oh my God, in chapter 4. The music is often a symbol here that the author uses to show us some deeper meaning. So what did you guys think about the song? Like, what do you think this is? What does it represent? Or why does the author keep writing about it here on the first page, but then also here on page 17, as we were looking at Kino and Juana? What is up with the song, you guys? That's my question. Let's start talking about the song. What do you think? Frank, you have an idea?
My guessing is nature, the what we should be, so we be still we're human being has to be nature, to live like a nature,
Ooh,
something like this.
okay.
That's the way I think about. You don't be bothered by money, just the family itself. So just nature, the way, the all the time, we used to just go to the, without money, we still can live, the
See.
kind of that he want to tell us, that the kind of life we should do, or something like this.
I love it. Frank started to bring up 2 things there. I love both of them, but I love that Frank kept it very simple for us so far, right? Frank is saying, okay, I think.
Yes, but yeah, very simple life.
But the song is nature, the natural world, right? So like the earth,
Right.
the ocean, and okay, I love that. Frank is connecting the song to nature. Okay,
Yes.
Vanna, what do you think?
I think song is symbolic kind of for storytelling,
Go on. Oh, I like this. Continue.
because if you go through chapters and you read it, it's constantly mentions the song that entails like the people were making songs about like whatever is happening, right?
Mm,
So, that was a storytelling for me.
I love it.
I don't know, I'm just making comparison because in my literature, back in the days, it's called folklore. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, yeah.
They were making songs on whatever, was happening, and they were like making songs for the day, like a prayer, like the rain for, let's the rain for the ground the soil to be, watery, and, it can give us seeds. So
Love it.
it's symbolic.
Love it. Good. I'm going to start to duplicate. I'm going to make a slide here because again, now again, notice, I know we're jumping around, but it's kind of like there's no perfect way to do this. We just kind of have to practice doing it. But I'm going to write down, remember with symbols, ambiguity still. So if we say, what is the song, or what does it represent? We've got, now this is big symbol, big theme, big feeling. Frank's talking about nature. And Susanna's talking about life and folklore. And I heard also like some connection to prayer there too. And even, well, notice even on this page, we get that, we do have those two ideas kind of mixed up together here, right, Susanna? We've got the song to the fishes, song to the sea in anger, song to the sea in calm, song to the light, song to the dark, song to the sun, song to the moon, right? But then when we think about Kino and Juana, we do say in the canoe above him, Kino knew that Juana was making the magic of prayer. Her face set rigid, her muscles hard to force the luck, to tear the luck out of the god's hands. Now, I think we could talk about in this, even in this one paragraph, is song and prayer the exact same thing? I don't know, but there's some connection here, right? I definitely think that when you're talking about symbols and really important symbols in a book like this, you're going to have kind of layers and levels of deeper meaning here, right? So maybe I should put all of these as options. Nature, life, prayer, folklore. And folklore, when I think of folklore, I don't know about you guys, but does everyone know this word? I'm sure people do, but folklore is usually, folklore means history before there were history books, right? It means how did people from a place, from a culture, from a city, from a religion share their customs, their beliefs, their stories, their sayings, and I would even say their knowledge, right? Like again, before the internet, before your iPhone, how did you find out information? People had this big cultural memory, right? People had this big tradition of knowledge. So I think that it's really important here, this idea that Suzanne is introducing. So maybe I could even add to the list this word that I said, knowledge, right? Andre in the chat, Linda's got a question that I'll go to, but Andre liked this word for you too, Susanna. I saw in the chat, Andre wrote, maybe the song is just like life, what's going on, what's happening. It's sort of the song is just a metaphor for our experience in our life, right? Sometimes we're happy and it's a happy song. Sometimes we're sad and it's a sad song, right? Sometimes, as we see later in the book, Kino's song is hopeful, and sometimes Kino's song is violent and scary, right? Yeah, so I like this. And again, we could say, well, life is just a part of nature and all of this is connected to God or the gods that we read about in this book. So the song, we again see lots of levels, lots of layers, lots of deep meaning going on when we've got a symbol that's this important, right? Especially, like I said, in a parable, like we said, this is a simple story with a deep spiritual meaning. Good. And let me check the chat. And then Linda's saying, maybe the author's trying to express the way of their lifestyle. Yeah. Do you want to add to that, Linda? I think we were kind of
like, I mean, because they are living near to the ocean or near to the sea, or the place that they have been living. So maybe the author tries to express the way of how their situation is, or how they are living in this, let's say, poverty, or and in some hard situations that they cannot even handle their medication for their son.
Yes.
So I think it's a kind of soft music, but at the same time it's not, because of their hard situation.
Good. Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, you just said it, Linda, but I think that in the story, the music changes, right? And when the music changes, it is almost like I think everybody's on it. I mean, Frank and Susanna and Linda, I think you guys are right on it, and Andre too in the chat. I think that the song, when the author says Kino heard the song of anger, we can probably assume that it's an angry moment, right?
Yeah.
When we hear the peaceful song or the music of the past or the music of the village, then I think you're right, Linda. That then we get this change, right? As the song changes, that's life changing. And as life changes, the song changes, right? I think that's something we definitely see all throughout the book, right? Does that make sense? Frank, do you agree? I agree with when you say nature, Frank, but do you see what I'm getting at? How sometimes when the plot changes, the song changes? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it is. Because, you see the movies or TV drama, always there is a song for all the character has a different song.
Yep.
So I can hear you, then I can make, the lecture tell me to how to make a drama.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I love it. So I think you're exactly correct, right? So we could say, the song represents the feeling, life, character, mood, whatever, right? So I think you're right. In a movie, we don't need an author to say the song was angry, the song was sad. We just get faster music, or we get scary music in a horror movie, or we get, that, oh, the characters are falling in love, and we get that falling in love music. But I think that's exactly right. In this story, we don't hear the music, but the author definitely describes it, right? The author will say, and now he heard the song of, like we saw in our example here, right? At the beginning, we even get the song of the pearl that might be, right? So you could hear this maybe song of hopefulness or song of dreaming, or, maybe I'll get the pearl, I will find the biggest pearl, and, whatever, all of these things. Excuse me. So I think you guys are right on it here. As you keep reading, if you're not done with the book yet, and I'll assign the next few pages here. As you keep reading, look for that song, right? Look, when the author says now he could hear the song, be aware of it, right? Because this is a symbol that the author is using for the entire book, Okay, I want to go back and look at some more here and see if we can be done with Juana. Frank, what does Juana do? When Juana are looking for pearls, Juana protects Coyotito, who is her first baby. Good. Frank's talking about a lot of the things that Andre and Susanna wrote about. Moreover, she collects brown seaweed as a remedy to make a damp poultice to cool off Coyotito's shoulder. Juana helps Kino sliding his canoe, and they paddle to the point where the oysters live deep. Good. And even if, notice, this is one thing that I think Andre talked about this a little bit, and so did Susanna. But here in the story, we see Juana helping Kino slide the canoe. This, we could even say, goes back to, for Juana's character analysis, she's helpful, she's supportive, right? Everything she does is to help her husband, to help her child. So even in that short example that Frank gives us in this paragraph, that absolutely connects to that deeper theme of her character, right? She's helpful, loyal. She wants to support her husband and her child, right? And here Frank says it, Juana is deeply connected to Kino and Coyotito. Great job, Frank. Absolutely. Let's look at Aki's and then Linda. We only got two more. So you guys, this is great. So again, if you're watching the recording or you haven't done the discussion, you've got some great examples from the students we're looking at here. Let's look at Aki's and then Linda's, and then I'll see if we have any questions. In a word, I think the character of Juana is her inner reserve of strength. Ooh, I love it. So Aki's focused on strength as a wife and mother. In this chapter, there are only a few words that Juana says. However, her attitude explains a wife who believes in her husband and a mother who protects her children. Ooh, Aki's so good, so good. First of all, Kino is looking for a shell. She's watched his actions, no matter where they are. In addition, Kino seems unable to hide his excitement. Nevertheless, Juana quietly calms him and leads the next action. It illustrates that she believes in her husband. Oh, Aki, fantastic. really great. And let's look at Linda's. I won't even say too much about Aki's. Aki's saying a lot of the same ideas that we have shared as a class together. But again, if you're looking for examples, you guys, about how to write a character analysis, all of the ones that we're looking in this class together are great. But Aki's doing a great job here, right? Connecting her analysis of great strength to specific actions, right? To specific actions from the book. So great job there, Aki. And let's see, Linda. According to Juana's character's actions were very clear. A lady who is taking responsibilities towards her family. Good. So again, Linda's giving us responsible and responsibility. She was taking care of her son by her own method. Good. Again, using that poultice, taking care of Coyotito. And more, again, strong woman with self-esteem. So great. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'll just say again, I know most of you that I'm reading these are here with me, but you know, Sanad, you haven't done your discussion yet. And anyone who hasn't done the discussion yet, you've got some great examples here. You've got some great examples. Great job, you guys. I'm so happy. Did anybody have questions about this activity? Because if we're good with Juana, then what I'd like to do is look at Kino a little bit. But any questions about Juana in chapter 2 or this first character analysis activity? Because again, you're going to be doing character analysis for the rest of the semester. So stop and ask questions now if you've got them. We feel good? Okay. What I want to do then, Aki says thumbs up. That's great. Let's do this then real quick. I'll keep the screen here. What my idea was, now we did chapter 2. I said, just look at chapter 2 and look at Juana. But I wanted to do this activity now because you'll see we could do the same thing with Kino's character in chapter 2, right? We could read chapter 2 focused really only on Kino's character and what he does and how this connects to the deeper theme, right? So if I ask you, I wanted to look at even just one paragraph. I think it was at the beginning that I wanted to show you. Well, let's even look at that. Let's do this. Oh, this was the one. This was the one that I wanted. Just to get more practice doing character analysis. And if you remember other things from this chapter, that's fine too. I am on page 18. So if you've got your paper book, you can look at it. I've got it on the screen here. So at the very beginning of page 18, let's just look at this paragraph and think about character analysis for Kino at this moment. Kino, in his, I'll follow along here. Kino, in his pride and youth and strength, could remain down over 2 minutes without strain, so that he worked deliberately, selecting the largest shells. Because they were disturbed, the oyster shells were tightly closed. A little to his right, a hummock of rubbly rock stuck up, covered with young oysters not ready to take. Kino moved next to the hummock, and then, beside it, under a little overhang, he saw a very large oyster lying by itself, not covered with its clinging brothers. The shell was partly open, for the overhang protected this ancient oyster. And in the lip-like muscle, Kino saw a ghostly gleam, and then the shell closed down. His heart beat out a heavy rhythm, and the melody of the maybe pearl shrilled in his ears. Slowly, he forced the oyster loose and held it tightly against his breast. He kicked his foot free from the rock loop, and his body rose to the surface, and his black hair gleamed in the sunlight. He reached over the side of the canoe and laid the oyster in the bottom. I'm going to keep going here a little bit too. Then Juana steadied the boat while he climbed in. His eyes were shining with excitement, but in decency he pulled up his rock, and then he pulled up his basket of oysters and lifted them in. Juana sensed his excitement, and she pretended to look away. It is not good to want a thing too much. It sometimes drives the luck away. You must want it just enough, and you must be very tactful with God or the gods. But Juana stopped breathing. Very deliberately, Kino opened up a short, strong knife. He looked speculatively at the basket. Perhaps it would be better to open the oyster last. He took a small oyster from the basket, cut the muscle, searched the folds of flesh, and threw it in the water. Then he seemed to see the great oyster for the first time. He squatted in the bottom of the canoe, picked up the shell, and examined it. The flutes were shining black to brown, and only a few small barnacles adhered to the shell. Now Kino was reluctant to open it. What he had seen, he knew, might be a reflection, a piece of flat shell accidentally drifted, or a complete illusion. In this gulf of uncertain light, there were more illusions than realities. Lots of good stuff here. But one thing, I think that you guys already did this in your analysis of Juana. When I ask you guys to do character analysis, one thing, an easy suggestion for students who are doing this is new, is to look for adjectives or words that the author uses to describe the character, right? So for example, in this first sentence that I started with here to analyze characters, Kino's character, what kind of adjectives or descriptions do we see of Kino in just this first?
Youth and strength.
Good, youth, strength, and what else?
Deliberately.
Thank you, Sanad. Yes, and his pride, right? So, okay, right away, especially again, parable. It's not always this easy, but I chose this book because it is easy at first. We get, okay, he's very proud, he's young, he's strong, right? And how do we know? Well, again, the author tells us he can hold his breath for 2 minutes, right? Down under the water, hold his breath, no strain, right? And then notice also here we have an adverb, not just adjectives, but he worked. How did he work? Deliberately, right? Now, again, if I ask you to analyze Kino's entire character for the whole book, maybe you wouldn't say he's a very deliberate person. But when you're starting to do character analysis in a chapter or, in a whole book, these kind of words are very helpful from the author because they're saying, Kino is this type of person, right? He behaves this type of way, right? Let's see, then we get lots. I'm just curious. Let's just look at this paragraph, right? The paragraph where he sees the pearl for the first time. Could we say anything about Kino's character just from this paragraph? Sanada and all of you guys were saying, okay, youth and strength, pride. Kino is proud. According to this paragraph, Kino is proud, he is strong, and he is young. How do we know? He can hold his breath for 2 whole minutes. Anything else we learn about Kino from the way that he does his work?
I see Kino's character very simple.
Okay.
He just looks very motivated by basic drives. He loves his family, and he does it like for his family over there.
I like the word simple there, Susanna, too. I like simple. It's not in the paragraph, but again, he describes the way that Kino works. Like this says deliberately. That's one of the adverbs I showed you guys, but it describes it is very simple. We can close our eyes and maybe imagine this, right? He goes on water. He looks at what's in front of him. He's searching. He sees a big, he sees a big oyster. He decides that he's going to get that. It is very simple. Yeah. So I like that. That makes sense to me.
When it comes to the chapter 2, I was kind of putting it together in my head. So he's, simple, and he doesn't want much, but starting this chapter, his intentions are changing. So he's from the very simple, and he was like a calm, kind guy, and this kind of, because of the pearl, it's kind of changing him towards to the Not the violent, but like
Well,
greed.
well, it's well, and violence and greed definitely go together in this book, I think. But again, I love what Susanna is saying there. And again, if you are not done with the book, don't worry. We'll talk about this more for the next couple of weeks. But I love what Susanna did there, which is Susanna was starting to make connections for the whole book now. Okay, we see, wow, in chapter 1 and 2, he seems like a nice man. He loves his loves his baby. He loves his wife. He's a simple man. He works very hard. And then, like Andre wrote about in his post, and like we've talked about, wow. Okay, so when you compare the Kino at the beginning of the story to the Kino at the end of the story, now we're doing character analysis for the whole book, right? And I'm just giving Susanna a big thumbs up there, because when we notice these things in the beginning, as we read, the sooner we notice these things while we're reading, we're building those skills, the easier it will feel for us to do an analysis of the whole book, right? So anyway, I'm just agreeing with what Susanna was saying. Linda, did I see you unmute yourself? Any ideas? Or anything you want to say?
I was just like, I want to add something about this paragraph. I can see his reaction when he held the pearl and just put it like to his heart, it was just like a kind of his deep reaction towards the thing that he found it, or he tried to get it. I want to add this.
I totally agree, right? And again, even in a nice simple story, I think you're right. This image of, he puts it to his heart. Again, the author could have said anything. The author could have said he put it in his pocket, or he held it in his hand. But you're absolutely correct, Linda. The author describes he holds the pearl to his heart. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, even he mentioned a rhythm, like a rhythm of his heart, it's a beat of his heart when he just hold that pearl.
Absolutely. Good. Anybody else for this paragraph? I mean, Susanna and Linda did a great job there. Frank, anything you want to add? You agree, disagree?
Paragraph, it's kind of especially towards the end, like from the middle of the paragraph over there that you highlighted, it's kind of the opening, because I already know.
Yes.
Like I just see the whole picture, and I just kind of said it's kind of the beginning of his change over there.
Yeah, you got it. You nailed it. You're on it. Frank, do you agree? You agree?
Yes, I agree. And I'm thinking more like his concentration to looking for the oyster. So that he tried to his best to look for the pearl. I mean the oyster, good oyster.
Love it. I love it, Frank. I love it. Yeah. And I love that we said that word deliberately, and then Susanna said kind of simple, and I like that. But Frank, I like Frank sort of saying it's connected to simple, I think, right? Hardworking, really doing a sort of clear, focused, right? That was sort of something Frank was saying. He's focused on doing the job, right? In a clear and specific way. So I like that. Now, I wanted to talk about, we talked about theme a lot. But in this second paragraph, I'm zooming back out. So we did some good analysis of Kino there. We're getting that good practice of Kino, character analysis for Kino. But again, now I want to zoom back out to big themes, right? Like we talked about in this slide, the symbol of the song. What does this mean? What is he talking about? Now, theme is not always connected to a clear symbol like this. For example, if we look at this paragraph, I think there's some deep stuff going on we should talk about. So I'll only read, I'm not going to read the whole thing again, but then Juana, so he gets in the boat, right? Then Juana steadied the boat while he climbed in. His eyes were shining with excitement, but in decency, he pulled up his rock, and then he pulled up his basket of oysters and lifted them in. Juana sensed his excitement, and she pretended to look away. It is not good to want a thing too much. It sometimes drives the luck away. You must want it just enough, and you must be very tactful with God or the gods. So those sentences that I just read, it is not good to want a thing too much. This is important to start to notice, you guys.
To be satisfied?
Now, we can talk about the theme in a second here, Linda, I agree. But I wanted to ask, is this something that Kino is saying, Juana is saying or the author is saying?
Oh, yes, this is plus minus.
Tell me, what do you think, Frank? Who is it?
The Kino is very exciting, but the other hand, Juana is make sure there is a two-way. If he is exciting, but one is good, but if the power is small, then he gonna be disappointed. So she has to think two ways. One is good. So that's why in case it's very bad, so she can understand,
I love it. I love it. Frank is continuing excellent character analysis and excellent thinking about how they're opposite, right? Like Juana is going, oh my God, what if it's not something good? And Kino is going, oh yeah. What if it is something good? I love that example, Frank. And I just want to go back to these sentences. It is not good to want a thing too much. It sometimes drives the luck away. You must want it just enough, and you must be very tactful with God or the gods. I want to ask again, do you guys think, is this Kino's opinion, Juana's opinion, or the author's opinion? Susanna.
It was kind of tricky because I read this sentence a couple of times because
Right.
I was thinking it's others, and then I was like, it was Juana's turn to talk. It was a kind of explaining what Juana is thinking, and it just like right after that, this sentence comes. So I think it's the others, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it's kind of what Juana was like feeling.
Good. It's good. I think you're right. Now, again, I always say, I always can make it. Sometimes I can present things, any teacher, like it's too simple. So I think you're right, Susanna. It's not only one or the other, but I'm trying to draw your attention. I want you to notice these type of sentences where, especially in this book, he doesn't say Juana did this, Kino did that, Kino thought this, Juana felt that. This is a little different, notice, because here we get this second person pronoun, right? You must want it just enough, and you must be very tactful. Now, again, I think, especially in this book, you guys, when the author is saying you should do this, you should do that, I think I want you to ask yourself, ooh, is this some theme? Is this some deeper meaning, right? Is this kind of what the book is really about in a certain way? Because this idea, it's not good to want a thing too much. It drives the luck away. I mean, this is something we could agree or disagree with, right? Like this doesn't have to be the truth. I mean, maybe we agree with this, but I mean, it doesn't have to. Some people might say, oh, it's impossible to want. Go ahead, Susanna. Go ahead, Susanna. Yeah, tell me.
I was like, maybe Juana was thinking that. That's why it was kind of tricky.
All right, exactly. So what do we think? I'm just curious, what do you guys think about this quote in the book? Like Susanna was saying, is this what Juana is thinking? And what do we think about this idea in real life, like as a deeper theme? Do you agree? Like it's not good to want something too much? Do you agree, disagree? Why or why not? Now we're getting into a little bit of the response part like we did for the poetry, but this is kind of a deeper idea in this book. So I think, literature allows us to talk about this stuff. What do you guys think?
Like I think if it, like to avoid any disappointment, you should not to be wanted that think so much to just avoid yourself from disappointed or to not make it done, so you're not gonna feel bad. So I feel, or I think, or I believe we should be take it easy, not take it that much, not in the middle.
Love it.
I agree.
Tell us, you want to add anything or just totally agree with Linda?
I think it's completely healthy to want something really badly, because when you want something really badly, you work really hard to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there is gonna be a balance in your life. So even though you just want something really hard, that's my personal way that I'm thinking. And if it's not happening, that's okay.
Yeah, you're gonna accept it. You're gonna accept it or go, even if it's bad things happen, you're gonna accept it.
See, okay, now again, I want to say something. I want to hear from everybody who wants to talk, but I love, now notice, we were just talking And now the idea of acceptance isn't really in the book, right? He doesn't say acceptance, acceptance, but just from talking, Linda shared, Susanna shared, then Linda shared, we got to this idea of, well, actually, in a way, you know, these sentences are about acceptance. And especially when you look at that, you must be very tactful with God or the gods. There's this feeling like, well, whatever God decides or whatever God wants, you should accept, right? So again, I just want to say, if Linda wanted to say, or if anybody wanted to say, there's a deep theme about acceptance in this chapter. You're good. I'm going to mute you. Oh, you're good. There's a deep theme of acceptance in this chapter in this book. You're good. Take care of yourself. I know you're there. Do your thing. Of course. Then I just want to make sure that I love that even though the word acceptance is not in these 2 sentences or 3 sentences, I think, Linda, you are absolutely correct when you go, wow, you know, this part of the story made me think about acceptance, and can we accept God's will? Can we accept God's plan? And how this connects to the everything in the book, right? Now we're really getting at deep, deep, deep theme, even though we might not have one perfect symbol. But I will say all of these thoughts and ideas are connected to he's holding the pearl. Right? Like I said, if there's a central image for this story, you know, the name of the book kind of gives it away, kind of tells what it is. But I just want to keep, I hope that it's helpful to see how these deeper ideas of theme build and build and build throughout the story. Frank, what do you think about this idea of wanting things too much and what Linda and what Susanna were talking
Yes,
about?
I agree with them, and I think so. So, yeah, I think there is a possibility, good and bad happening.
Yes.
So then she's prepared both ways. So I think that they want to say. I agree with them.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. How about anybody else, Andre or Sanad? Anybody else want to add in the chat? Does this make sense? Or even if you're like, wait a minute, I don't know if I agree or disagree because I'm not sure what Linda and Susanna and Jeff and Frank are talking about. Anybody have ideas or questions? Little yellow thumbs up. Good. Cool. Anything else about chapter 2? Because we've got about 20 more minutes left in class, and I wanted to sort of talk about chapter 3. Chapter 3 is much longer. We get some really big ideas coming in, and like Susanna and Frank, if you finish the book, things start to change in this chapter. Or Andre, right? Andre was writing, what is going on in chapter 4? Things really start to shift in this 3rd chapter. So does anybody else have any questions or ideas about chapter 2, where he finds the pearl? Ooh, I love, Andre says in the chat, when you want big things, it means big changes. Ooh, Lord, I agree, Andre. I agree. There's a story, how could I say this? Yeah, like a story. It's like a parable already, right? Like where, at least for in my family, it was, you know, like a man is praying and he's like, God, I want everything to change in my life. Please help me. Please change things. And then things turn to change, right? Everything in his life changes. And then the next day, the man is praying and he says, Dear God, I know that I asked for you to change things, but why is everything so different now? So yeah, big changes, big changes, when things are really different, that can mean big changes. Or if you want something really big, that can mean really big changes. So I love that idea, Andre, too. Yeah, big pearl, big change. The bigger the pearl, the bigger the change, you know. Good. I love it. Okay, then anything else about chapter 2? Great. Okay, I want to introduce and start to talk about chapter 3 a little bit because, so let me say this. Lesson 11 is a discussion activity about Juana, And I shared some of the examples from the students who are here in class. Again, amazing work, you guys, fantastic. Lesson 12, it won't be a discussion, but it is going to be practice for you doing character analysis. And it's going to be practicing doing character analysis for Kino in chapter 3. So I wanted to at least start that and do a little bit of this together to get some practice before you do it on your own in Canvas, okay? So we've got all this information about the town is a colonial animal, and I want to talk about the town later after we've all finished the book. We could almost say though, remember last week we talked about setting. In this book, the setting, the town, is almost like a character by itself, right? Like there's a lot of interesting things happening with the town, and the way that Steinbeck says the town does this, the town does this, then this happened in the town. So there's a lot of interesting stuff kind of going on there. But I want to get to Kino, right? Yes, this is where I wanted to start. So if you haven't read or go back and read, go back and look at those pages 21 and 22. It describes about the town. And to to Andre's comment in the chat, big difference, big change, right? Big ask, big change. Wanting something big means a big change. Well, the pearl in this story is so big that the whole town changes, right? That's what's going on at the beginning of chapter 3. But I want to start here on page 23, right, where we get back to the plot and what happens in the narrative. So it says the town is different. Everybody found out about the pearl. They saw Kino. What is he going to do? They were imagining what's going to happen. And then we get this paragraph on the bottom of page 23. And let me zoom in a little bit so we can see. Ooh, Andre saying, who is the main hero of the story, Kino or Juana? Andre, we need to ask that in 2 weeks when we're talking about the last chapter. I think that's a great question. I want to stop talking about that now because let's wait until everyone is done with the book. I don't know. Who's the main hero of the story? What a great question. You know what Andre, you know me well enough now. I'm just going to say, what do you think? And then as long as you can explain your answer. We'll talk about that when we talk about the last chapter in a couple of weeks. Okay, but here at the bottom, remember what we're practicing here, you guys, is character analysis just of Kino in chapter 3. So we get, but Kino and Juana did not know any of these things because they were happy and excited. They thought everyone shared their joy. Juan, Tomas, and Apollonia did, and they were the world too. In the afternoon, when the sun had gone over the mountains of the peninsula to sink in the outward sea, Kino squatted in his house with Juana beside him, and the brush house was crowded with neighbors. Kino held the great pearl in his hand, and it was warm and alive in his hand. And the music of the pearl had merged with the music of the family, so that one beautified the other. The neighbors looked at the pearl in Kino's hand and they wondered how such luck could come to any man. And Juan Tomas, who squatted on Kino's right hand because his brother, asked, "What will you do now that you have become a rich man?" Okay, I mostly want to we don't have Kino doing too much. We only have Kino holding the pearl. But after we talked about this symbol of the music, does anyone want to add something about this sentence where we have the music of the pearl had merged with the music of the family so that one beautified the other? Frank or Linda, or I know Susanna, you're picking up the family, but anybody want to talk about what this means for them? What's going on here? Frank, what do you think?
Oh, the music is very happy. He's so excited. Kino is very exciting. All the audience are looking at him for their very. He is a star right now for this moment.
Good. I love it. Linda, what do you think?
I think like now the music is changed to joyful, like they feel like they are happy with what they got. After it was like a hard, and now like everything is okay with them. Like I think the music has changed to happiness or
Excellent.
joyful.
Excellent. And I'm thinking of what Susanna was saying earlier when she was saying, well, we know that Juana loves Coyotito. That's very clear, and cares about Coyotito. But Susanna was saying, but Kino, even though we know maybe things do not go very well, that in his way, maybe this is that man versus woman thing, but in his way, he also cares about his family. He loves his wife and he loves his child. And we could say, here's some good evidence for that, right, Susanna? The pearl music merges with the family music for Kino. Kino's holding the pearl and he goes, okay, the pearl is beautiful and my life, my family is beautiful, and I believe that they can go together, right? So again, I think we've got that change in the positive feeling of the music. Like Frank was saying, everyone's gathered around him, things feel really good. And again, I think it's a very specific choice for John Steinbeck here to say, well, the music of the pearl and the music of the family came together and they were beautiful together, right? So Kino is imagining the pearl is beautiful, it will make my family beautiful, right? The pearl is wonderful, it will make my family wonderful. We see how for Kino, those songs go together, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mhm.
Cool. So now we start to see some actions. Now I want to look at some more, that I'd say again, big themes. So you could do a reading and say, hey, I want to read chapter 3 and see where does the song come in? Where does this symbol of the music or the symbol of the song come in? Well, here's some good examples of that. Okay. Now though, let's look at Kino's character here. So again, I'm on page 25. So we've got Kino looked into his pearl, and Juana cast her eyelashes down and arranged her shawl to cover her face so that her excitement could not be seen. And in the incandescence of the pearl, the pictures formed of the things Kino's mind had considered in the past and had given up as impossible. In the pearl, he saw Juana and Coyotito and himself standing and kneeling at the high altar, and they were being married now that they could pay. He spoke softly, we will be married in the church. In the pearl, he saw how they were dressed, Juana in a shawl stiff with newness and a new skirt. And from under the long skirt, Kino could see that she wore shoes. It was in the pearl, the picture glowing there. He himself was dressed in new white clothes, and he carried a new hat, not of straw, but of fine black felt. And he too wore shoes, not sandals, but shoes that laced. But Coyotito, he was the one. He wore a blue sailor suit from the United States and a little yachting cap, such as Kino had seen once when a pleasure boat put into the estuary. All of these things Kino saw in the lucent pearl, and he said, we will have new clothes. And the music of the pearl rose like a chorus of trumpets in his ears. Okay, we've got lots of stuff connected to Kino's character that we could talk about here. So when we think about Kino's actions, what do we notice, right? Kino looks in the pearl and he sees, what does he see, Frank?
Imagination. When he will become rich, how he can do. Lot of imagination.
Excellent, excellent, good. He sees, so the pearl is almost like a symbol for his dreams, for his imagination. He can almost see or imagine when I'm rich, when we all become rich, here's what will happen, right? And this is like Susanna was saying earlier, right? When we see this vision, it's not just, a new clothes for him, right? It's, he sees he and Juana are getting married in the church. And he sees that Juana has a new dress and she has shoes. And then we see, yes, he gets some new clothes. And then Coyotito gets new clothes, right? He says, we will have new clothes, right? So his imagination, like Frank said, it's not just him, it's definitely connected to the song of the family, right? So at this point in chapter 3, we definitely see, okay, well, for Kino, the dream of the pearl, the imagination of the money is to help his family, is to help Juana and to help Coyotito, right? Anybody else want to add? Hopefully this is clear as we're doing this analysis. I see Susanna nodding, but Linda or Aki, anybody have questions about, because I do want to keep going a little bit before we finish, because this continues and we introduce a new theme here. But does this make sense? Character analysis of Kino?
Yes.
Linda says yes.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so we get more imagination. I love that word that Frank used here. He keeps imagining, right? The music of the pearl rose like a chorus of trumpets. Then to the lovely gray surface of the pearl came the little things Kino wanted. A harpoon to take the place of one lost a year ago. A new harpoon of iron with a ring in the end of the shaft. And his mind could hardly make the leap. A rifle, but why not? Since he was so rich. And Kino saw Kino in the pearl. Kino holding a Winchester carbine. It was the wildest daydreaming and very pleasant. His lips moved hesitantly over this. A rifle, he said, perhaps a rifle. I'm going to keep going, but I love when Andre was saying, you know, big dream, big change. Even in this paragraph, we get that feeling of, wow, I can imagine new clothes, but it's almost impossible to imagine so much money, a harpoon, and a rifle, and some things that are almost hard to imagine because it's too big a change, right? It's too big a change. Now, it was the rifle that broke down the barriers. This was an impossibility. And if he could think of having a rifle, whole horizons were burst and he could rush on. For it is said that humans are never satisfied, that, and this is what I wanted to read. Notice here we get that second person pronoun again, you guys, like we were talking about. Is this Kino or is this the author talking? For it is said that humans are never satisfied, that you give them one thing and they want something more. And this is said in disparagement, whereas it is one of the greatest talents the species has, and one that has made it superior to animals that are satisfied with what they have. Ooh, what do we think about this, you guys? Now, let's just do a response here. Anybody, I'd love to hear, what do you think? Do you agree or disagree? We were saying it's good to have your dreams in balance, right? It might happen, it might not happen. Here we have the other side of this almost, right? It's said that humans are never satisfied, that to give them one thing, they want something more. And this is said in disparagement, whereas it is one of the greatest talents the species has, and one that has made it superior to animals that are satisfied with what they have. What do we think? We could have big opinions about this. What do you think, Frank or Linda or anyone who can talk? What do you think?
Yes, it is. So human is never satisfied. Any situation where you have money but this is the human nature.
Yeah.
So we cannot do anything. Some people handle, most people cannot handle.
Now, so I love that. So Frank is saying you agree with this, but how about this sentence that it says, whereas it is one of the greatest talents the species has, and one that has made it superior to animals. It doesn't just say we're different than other animals, right? In this part in the book, it says superior to animals that are satisfied with what they have. Do you agree, Frank, that this never satisfied makes human?
Some superior is probably God.
Ooh, okay. Now Frank is even going to the next step. Frank is saying, well, humans are not even that superior because what's actually superior is God. I love that. Okay, that's fantastic. Good.
And most people cannot satisfied, but maybe some people, maybe handful people can handle, but I don't know the people. I never seen those people.
I love it. Ooh, I love it, Frank. Linda, what do you think? If you're there.
Like as I read it, I find like as a humans we have desires, right? And some of our desires are not like enough for us, or we feel like we are not satisfied of these desires, or it's not enough for us. But like I feel like sometimes we have like the word that disparagement.
Disparagement. Yeah.
Discouragement. I feel like this one we get it if we just not be successful in our desire or in our what we wanted to do. Like how I explain it, I don't know, but like I feel like we have desires, but these desires are not enough sometimes for us, or we feel we have to make like get more, think over, like we are not limited.
Yes.
We don't have a limit.
And I think this book asks us this question, and I'm going to ask you now. And do you think it's good or bad, or just maybe it's not good or bad? It just is how things are, and we get to choose. Like, what do you think?
Yes.
Good, bad, or what do you think?
I feel like we have to choose what's good for us, especially like as a human, because like you have to think if it's right or wrong, doesn't matter, but you have to choose what's good for you. So this is how I like believe, or how I think.
Okay.
Like it's not because of bad or if it's good. No, you should like choose what is fit for you, what is like suitable for you.
Okay, I love it. And I love that answer because Frank said, oh, this paragraph just is human nature. So I love it. If Linda, you're saying it's not good or bad, it's not good or evil, then we're kind of saying, well, human nature, maybe we don't have to say human nature is totally good or totally bad. We can just say, well, this is just something about humans, and we need to, I don't know, I was going to say we need to pray and ask for help and ask our friends, but we need to try and do our best. Like, what do we do? This is, sometimes it's hard to be a human being,
We can do it.
We can.
Yeah, like sometimes even you have something to do it or to choose it, but sometimes you need advice, or it just like happens when you talk to somebody and he just like gave you advice by coincidence, like it's not in purpose. So I feel like sometimes you get the answer from some advice or from some other opinion or other people.
I totally agree. I see in the chat, Andre is introducing a different idea too. And he says in the chat, time is important here too, right? Kino does not have time for this big change inside of himself, but time does not have to destroy the body or the mind or the spirit. So I don't know. I think Andre could probably say more about this, but I love this idea of time, and that can change. Okay, how much change is good? How much change is bad? This idea of human nature, or like this sentence, like I said, it is one of the greatest talents the species has, and one that has made it superior to animals. Anyway, what do you think, Susanna? If you're, I see you sitting again. If you want to talk about this, we're talking about some big ideas. I want to hear from you if you want.
Would you please give the question once again?
I don't know, like, I think the book asks us, this idea of never being satisfied it makes humans superior. Do you agree or disagree? Do you feel like this is the author's idea or Kino's idea? Just anything you have to say about this idea that is introduced in this paragraph here.
I think it depends on the personality.
Go on.
Well, if the person has, jealousy, person has, this competitive personality, or, always want to get more, basically not satisfying whatever he has, not appreciating whatever he has, those type of people, they are selfish. And and you know they want more and more and more, which makes them superior.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when a person is, you know, kind of humble, is just like happy with whatever he has, and you know appreciating whatever it has, you know, I don't think like it's directly tagging for all people.
Nice. Yeah. I love it. Susanna said the word selfish there. Even last week, we said one big sort of theme that comes up is greed is definitely a big theme in this story, right? So it's tricky. I think this word, and I see Aki's comment that I want to read too, but for it said that humans are never satisfied. Now, this word never is, for me, it makes me a little bit nervous, right? I think never satisfied. And when I see never satisfied, then I think like Susanna, ooh, is this like a selfish person? Is this a greedy person? Never satisfied. I mean, I think the argument here for me, what I think of, the opposite is, well, I'm satisfied with everything. I'm lazy. I don't ever try to do it. You know, like I never do anything. Like everything's fine. Who cares? I don't have to do any work. God will do everything for me. Well, you know, maybe that's out of balance, like this word balance we were talking about, right? But I do agree with most of you guys, this idea of never satisfied, well,
It's a big word.
usually that doesn't make people very happy. You know what I mean? If you never have enough, if nothing is ever good enough, you always want, I think this is to me a very, one reason that one reason that I like to work with you guys and that I don't always like to work with Americans is I think for many Americans, it is never enough, right? Never enough money, never enough property, never enough time. It's always like more, more, more. Not all Americans, of course, but I think for many Americans, this feeling of, even if you buy your $2 million house, you see a $3 million house and you need that house. You know what I mean? It's just,
My sister-in-law right there.
is it really?
She's American.
Yeah, I mean, right? This is what I talk about with, well, I don't, again, my family is mostly the Americans that I see because I work with you guys. And then a lot of my friends I met in graduate school, and I have a very good friend who's from China and another student who's from Japan. And yeah, I think it's hard for me sometimes to understand my fellow Americans because many Americans, it's never good enough. And that is to me a very, I was going to say painful, but I get tired living that way, man. When nothing's ever good enough, it's like, oh my goodness, can we just be grateful for what we have for a day even? Or I see, maybe Aki agrees because I see in the chat, Aki says, I think the desires that are on their effort is okay, but maybe this is not. So they should have been excited. When I read this chapter, I think he was an idiot. Sorry for the word. Yeah, we can definitely, we all might have some strong judgments about Kino at different moments in this story. But I do think, so again, if we're thinking about Kino character analysis, you guys, whether we want to say that this is only the author's opinion or only the Kino's opinion, it's probably not clear. But like Susanna said earlier, well, when we were looking at this, it's not good to want the thing too much. That came when we were reading about Juana, right? And in this example, this humans are never satisfied. This makes them superior. This definitely comes when we're reading about Kino's thoughts and feelings, right? So I think this feeling of more, I'm never satisfied. I think that we can probably pretty safely say is much more connected to some of Kino's character in this chapter and, you know, throughout the rest of the book as well. Does that make sense, you guys? This example and how we're connecting this. Notice again, this comes after these beautiful paragraphs of Kino has good intentions. Like Susanna said, he dreams of better life for himself, for his wife, for his child. Then he gets a little, maybe we could say, maybe, I'm not saying this is my opinion, but maybe a little greedy. Ooh, and a harpoon. Ooh, and a rifle, right? Okay, but at the beginning, family, church, marriage, clothes, that nice feeling for himself and his family. So all of that is about Kino's dreams and imagination, like Frank said. But then we get this, this deeper paragraph about some deeper themes here. Okay. So I know that chapter 3 is a little bit longer and we're just about out of time. But like I said, in Canvas, I did not open it yet. I wanted to see how we did today. But for the next assignment, I'm going to ask you to analyze Kino's character, maybe in a specific part of chapter 3, because chapter 3 is very long. But any questions about character analysis before I finish class today? Because like I said, that's what you'll do. You'll analyze a little bit of Kino in chapter 3. So any questions? Susanna says no.
No, not in the chapter 3, but I wanted to save everyone having the same problem with your audio records, because I was trying to hear your reading, and after the first chapter, like all of them, it's just like only 1 minute is working, and then again it's restarting.
Oh, can anyone, Susanna's
No,
having,
it's perfect. I can hear you clearly.
okay. Anybody else? Susanna, are you trying on a phone or computer?
I did both. Like on my computer, it just like started again. So I did like 3-4 times, and then I switched it to the phone, and then.
Okay. Linda, you heard, and did you hear all the
Yes.
chapters, Linda?
Yes, clear.
Okay, how about anybody else who can type in the chat? Aki or Andre, if you're still here,
But Susanna, you were looking like you are opening 2 devices. Like it shows from beginning till now, it just like it shows that you open 2 devices. Maybe that's the reason you couldn't hear the
but I
reading.
think, Susanna, you're talking about the recording for the book, right? For
Yeah.
Yeah, so not for just this class today, Linda. I think she was talking about listening to me read the book.
Yeah.
Did anybody else?
When I read myself, I always like to follow you reading.
Yeah.
For my language development, that's kind of.
No, it
always like, it's like.
Oh, Susanna, did you download?
No.
Maybe you have to download.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
There is.
Yeah.
I did not know.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. And thank you, Aki.
Mhm.
And the other thing I was thinking, Susanna, I have all the files. It will probably take me 1 or 2 hours today, but I could put them on YouTube and then just send you the YouTube link and try it that way too.
Yeah.
Let me see. So Aki, you just downloaded the files instead of listening?
Yes. Yeah, because before download, I couldn't.
So how you download?
Oh.
Yeah, but after download, I could everything.
How did you did you go to files? How did you get there, Aki?
I don't I don't know how to.
I usually don't show you guys files, but they're there for you. Susanna, I'll show you again. If you go, you should be able to download it this way and then send me a text if this doesn't work, and I will do the YouTube route, Susanna, because I want you all to be able to hear me. That's why I record it. So if you go to files over here on the left and then go to course materials, and then I think there's just one more, and then it looks like a file, right? The Pro Audio. And then these are all the files themselves. One more step over here. Click on 3 dots.
Okay.
Try that, and anyone else who's having any problems listening inside of Canvas, try this. And if it doesn't work, then let me, Susanna, if you can, just send me a text, and then if not, I'll put it on YouTube.
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you for telling me. Thank you. Cool. Well then, otherwise, I'll see you next week. I'll send an announcement when I open up the Kino Chapter 3 character analysis, and you know where to find me. If you have any questions about the poetry project, of course, text me, email me, let's meet one-on-one. I'd be happy to go over it. And Frank's gone, so let's start next class with our poetry reading when Frank is here.
Yes, and also, did you grade the poetry paper?
Yes, I just published the grades for the whole class, like right before class. So your grade should be there. Let me
you know,
check. If not, I'll stop recording, and if not, I'll check. But
for the lesson 10.
oh, lesson 10. Let me check.
Mhm.
Oh no, I don't think all for lesson 10. I finished the poetry project. I think yeah, I'm very slow on that. Sanad says yes. Please text me, email. Let's make an appointment. Sanad, I don't think so. Let me look at your lesson 10, Susanna.
Mhm.
Cool. Anybody else? Questions or anything before we finish? You're wonderful.
No,
Bye, Aki. Bye, Linda.
Thank you,
Thank
Professor.
you.
Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you, Andre. And Tahmina, thank you. I don't even think I logged in with my, this is
Mhm.
recorded though, so that's good. Yeah, let me look. I was grading slow. I'm sorry, guys.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure that you check that.
Oh yeah, there were only 2 or 3 that I didn't. I finished some, but not all of them. That's why I didn't publish this yet. Let me take a look.
Mhm.
Perfect. I've got like a 30-minute break. I'm gonna grade this right now. So check in like 30 minutes. It'll be done, Susanna.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much.
Of course. Bye.